Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Well, it is the third attempt for my December pile of possibilities. I didn't like the way the first one came out. The second one was great, except it had no sound. So, either this one works or it doesn't. The lighting has been weird on all of them too, so hopefully that is resolved today as well. As you can see, the Christmas tree is up. It is undecorated. Kind of the compromise this year, so I am good with that. So this is actually going to be a two-part pile of possibilities. The second part will film later this afternoon, and that is all the stuff that is not all the stuff. A sliver of the stuff that is hiding on my e-readers that I'm floored by the amount of Christmas books I have on e-readers, seeing as I don't read a lot of, Christmas books most of the time. So it was astonishing to me. Okay, so what is sitting on my lap? Couple of them are from my winter recommendation video, which I will link down below. And so I'm not going to talk about them in great deal. First up is Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone. This is set in Alaska, and if Alaska cannot get me in a wintry mood, I don't know what can. So, here's hoping that one. And the second from that video is Valley Forge by Newt Gingrich and William Force Chen. And I am very much looking forward to this book. Probably going to read it closer to the middle or the end of the month. And I fully expect to need a lot of tissues. Fully expecting to need a lot of tissues. Okay. Now we are on to the paperback selection. And this was a find from my library. That is Five and Dime Christmas by Suzanne Dietz, Patti Smith Hall, Christina Lorenzen, and Cynthia Hickey. It is 4 novellas. I have not read any of these authors. They all take place in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1881 at the Woolworths. So, and I believe that it's all Christian fiction. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, it says it's Christian fiction. So, I love the cover. We will see how I get on. Want to read at least one of those stories. We all know I'm not a huge novella person, so if I read one, that would be great, in my opinion. Next up is Always in December by Emily Stone. I know I talked about this in my what didn't make it into the July book club selection video. I am very much looking forward to this. I'll read you the back of this one in particular. Every December, Josie mails a letter from her home in London to the parents she lost on Christmas night many years ago. Every time, she writes the same 3 words. Missing you, always. But one year, her annual trip to the mailbox is knocked off course when her bicycle collides with a handsome stranger. A stranger who will change Josie's life. Josie always thought she was the only one who avoided Christmas season. But this year, Max has his own reasons for doing the same. And coincidence leads them to spending the holiday together. Aglow with new love, Josie thinks this might be the start of something special. But then Max disappears without saying goodbye. Over the next year, Max and Josie find that fate continues to unite them in places they'd never expect. New York City, Edinburgh, and the quiet English countryside. And it turns out that Max has as many reasons to stay as he had to leave. But what does destiny hold for Josie and Max as Christmas approaches again? A devastating, romantic, life-affirming love story. Always in December will stay with readers long after they finish the last page. I love the cover. I think it sounds fantastic. So that's up. Next up would be Giver of Wonders by Rosanna M. Clarke. I believe this was in my birthday haul this year. Yeah, I believe this was in my third quarter haul. And I found this one, doing book club research. You guys, I find so many books doing book club research. It's amazing. And I cannot wait to read this one. And that leads me to A Woman of Words by Angela Hunt. This is the third book in the Jerusalem Road series. I know these can be read separately. When I did my 2024 roadmap in 2023, I put down December as read at least one biblical fiction. And I knew when I made that roadmap that this was the book intended for this month. So it has been waiting patiently for me to get around to it all year. So I need to read that one. And the last physical selection I have is The Darkness by Ragnar Jonasson. This is Icelandic crime thriller. And again, if a Nordic thriller does not get me in the mood for winter, I do not know what will. And I'll read you the back of this one. The body of a young Russian woman washes up on a remote Icelandic beach. She came looking for safety, but instead she found a watery grave. A hasty police investigation determines her death is a suicide, and the case is quietly closed. When Detective Inspector Hulda Hermannsdottir of the Reykjavik police is forced into early retirement, she is told she can investigate one last cold case of her choice. And she knows which one. The Russian woman whose hope for asylum ended on the dark, cold shore of an unfamiliar country. Soon, Hulda discovers that another young woman vanished at the same time, and that no one is telling her the whole story. Even her police colleagues seem determined to put the brakes on her investigation. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Hulda will find the killer, even if it means putting her own life in danger. Spanning the icy streets of Reykjavik, the Icelandic highlands, and cold, isolated fjords, The Darkness is an atmospheric and complex thriller from Ragnar Johansson, the award-winning author of the internationally best-selling Thor series. I have read nothing by him. I am very much in the mood for this. So, that is my physical TBR. I will mention my Catholic fiction choice for December is Ornamental Graces by Carolyn Asfalk. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. I have loved everything I have read by Carolyn this year, and I cannot imagine that I won't love this one as well. And I wanted to mention it separately from all the other books hidden on my e-readers. So that is my pile of possibilities. But that's not all. Okay, so Library Hall. Library Hall was very interesting. I get a little... I had 2 books on hold that came in, and then I wandered the shelves. I love wandering the shelves in my library. I always find something that grabs my attention, or like, ooh, I like that cover. I'll try that. So this was definitely one of those. And here's one of those covers that grabbed me. The spine title is The Pigeon Pie Mystery. I had to look. With that cover title, I had to look. And here's the cover. It's by Julia Stewart. It appears to be a standalone. I have never read anything by this author. And it sounds fascinating. So I will read you the back. Or the inside flap. Following the scandalous death of her father, the exuberant Maharaja of Priandor, Princess Alexandrina, nicknamed Mink, and accustomed to a lavish life of wild spending, discovers she is utterly penniless. To make matters worse, the government is demanding she surrender her beloved home, where she lives with her Indian maid Pookie, to repay her father's debts. Eventually, Queen Victoria saves Mink from certain ruin, granting her a grace and favor home in Hampton Court Palace as a mark of her friendship with the late Maharaja. Though the palace is rumored to be haunted, the strong-willed princess and superstitious Pookie have no choice but to steel themselves and accept the queen's offer. Aside from the ghost sightings, Hampton Court Palace doesn't seem to be so bad at first. Mink is soon befriended by 3 eccentric widows who invite her to a picnic held in the gardens, for which Pookie bakes a pigeon pie. But when the palace's most reviled resident, Major General Bagshot, suddenly dies after eating said pie, Pookie becomes the #1 suspect in a murder investigation. The princess isn't about to let her faithful servant hang. As the clock is ticking, she begins an investigation of her own and discovers Hampton Court isn't such a peaceful place after all. Everyone seems to have a motive for doing away with the Major General. But who did it? Was it William Sheepshanks, the keeper of the maze, about whom Bagshot complained for letting people in after hours to earn him a few pennies? Was it Montford Bebb, who blamed the dead man for making her the butt of a humiliating practical joke? Or could it be the Major General's house guest, the suspicious American paleontologist who was supposedly there to study new ghost sightings? So it sounds fascinating. And even if I don't get to this one because it's not quite, wintry, I want to try at least a couple chapters, and I can always check it out again. So that one is definitely on my try list. This is a definite recheck out for me. It is Advent by James Treadwell. This is the first book in the trilogy. I don't know what the name of this trilogy is. I know it's the first book in the trilogy, however. I wasn't in the mood last time I checked it out. I haven't been in the mood for fantasy, but this one sounds so fascinating. I'll read you it doesn't have a big, so I'll read you the inside flap. A drowning, a magician's curse, and a centuries-old secret. 1537. A man hurries through city streets in a gathering snowstorm, clutching a box in one hand. He is Johann Faust, the greatest magician of his age. The box he carries contains a mirror safeguarding a portion of his soul and a small ring containing all the magic in the world. Together, they comprise something unimaginably dangerous. London, the present day. 15-year-old Gavin Stokes is boarding a train to the countryside to live with his aunt. His school and his parents can't cope with him and the things he sees. Things they tell him don't really exist. At Pandora, Gavin finds people who are like him, who see things too. They all make the same strange claim. Magic exists. It's leaking back into our world, and it's bringing something terrible with it. I just, A, I love the cover, and B, I think it sounds absolutely incredible. So I need to read this one. This one is very high on my list of things to read. So, okay. Now, I do have an oddball selection of Christmas stuff and Nordic thrillers. Like I said, it was a very interesting trip to the library. So, let's do the Nordic thrillers first. There's only 2 of them. And first up would be The Keeper of Lost Causes by Jessie Adler Olsen. I have never read anything by her. This is the first book in a series, and it is set in Copenhagen, I believe. Yep, Copenhagen. So this is very high on my list. It is very high on my list. It's a Nordic thriller, police procedural. So yeah, Tammy really wants to read that. And before I walked in the library, I did a search for Nordic thrillers. Yeah. Give me some authors to go look for while I'm wandering the shelves. And so this one came up. The Man Burned by Winter by Pete Zacharias. I didn't read I didn't read the blurb. I like the title. It's the first in a series. Haven't read anything by this author. So I picked it up. Where is this book set? Norway, Finland, Iceland, Sweden. No, it's set in Minnesota. It's set in Minnesota, and my library filed it under Nordic thriller. You want to know why? Because the hero of said thrillers is named, you ready? Rooker Lindstrom. Sometimes, how we tag things is truly funny. And that one just struck me as funny. Okay, on to the Christmas specific books. I picked up this sweet little gem by the author of Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins. It is called Aunt Sass by P.L. Travers. It is 3 short stories by the author, and I cannot imagine any of my nieces and nephews giving me a better description than Aunt Sass. So I will read that one. It's very short. And then there is the lovely, I've never read anything by this man. He has an extensive backlist. This is the first in the series. That is The Noel Diary by Richard Paul Evans. Again, it's a short little wee thing. And I will see how I get on with it. It's not very long, so I think it's less than 200 pages. Nope. It's less than 300 pages. So, but, it's 300 very small pages with, it's not going to be a long read for me. So, okay. And then the next 2 I found, once again, doing Christmas in July. This is The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. I'm interested in this book. I don't know that I'm in the mood for it. It is epistolary. It is set in World War I, and I have never read anything by this author. I'm interested, so we shall see. We shall see. And it's a completely epistolary novel, so that's good. And then Marley by John Cinch. Again, I found this, and I will read you the flap of this one because it sounds fascinating. Marley was dead to begin with. Charles Dickens tells us at the beginning of A Christmas Carol. But in John Clinch's ingenious novel, Jacob Marley, business partner to Ebenezer Scrooge, is very much alive, a rapacious and cunning boy who grows up to be a forger, a scoundrel, and the man who will be both the making and the undoing of Scrooge. They meet as youths in the gloomy confines of Professor Drab's Academy for Boys, where Marley begins their twisted friendship by initiating the innocent Scrooge into the gentle art of extortion. Years later, in the dank heart of London, their shared ambition manifests itself in a fledgling shipping empire. Between Marley's genius for deception and Scrooge's brilliance with numbers, they amass a considerable fortune of dubious legality, all rooted in the pitiless commitment to the soon-to-be outlawed slave trade. As Marley toys with the affection of Scrooge's sister Fan, Scrooge falls under the spell of Fan's best friend, Belle Fairchild. Now, for the first time, Scrooge and Marley find themselves at cross purposes. With their business interests inextricably bound together, and instincts for secrecy and greed bred into their very bones, the two men engage in a shadowy war of deception, false identities, forged documents, theft, and cold-blooded murder. Marley and Scrooge are destined to clash in an unforgettable reckoning that will echo into the future and set the stage for Marley's ghost to return. This isn't very long, and I love the fact that it's under 300 pages. Telling the story, the backstory of Marley and Scrooge, who we all know and whom form the basis of so much of Christmas for a lot of us. And that leads me to Murder at Midnight by Catherine Shellman. This is the fourth book in the Lily Adler mystery series. It is set in Victorian England. I have loved all of the previous ones, and this one takes place at Christmas. And I highly recommend this series. It is fantastic. And I'm sorry, it's not Victorian England. It's Regency era. That was a huge blunder on my part. I've read so many Victorian books lately, that's probably why. Okay. This one is out of order, but I don't care. I want to read it anyway. It is The Queen's Christmas by Karen Harper. And this is a Queen Elizabeth I mystery. And I want to read these. I very much want to read this book. So I snagged it off the shelf. This one takes place in 1564. So, smack in the middle of Elizabeth's reign. And this one, too, is under 300 pages. So, none of these are huge time commitments on my part, which is good. Okay. And the last library book I picked up, I am currently in the process of reading, and it was sitting on the new acquisitions end cap, and I grabbed it. It is The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers by Samuel Burr. As of last night, I am halfway through. And this is... I'll read you the inside. Clayton Stumpter is in his 20s, but he dresses like your grandpa and fusses like your aunt. Abandoned at birth on the steps of the Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, he was raised by a group of eccentric and enigmatologists and now finds himself among the last survivors of a fading institution. When the esteemed crossword compiler and main maternal presence in Clayton's life, Pippa Allsbrook, passes away, she bestows her final puzzle on him, a promise to reveal the mystery of his parentage and prepare him for life beyond the walls of the commune. So begins Clay's quest to uncover the secrets surrounding his birth, Secrets that will change Clay and the Fellowship forever. I'm halfway through, and it is interesting, but it is very slow moving. It is not a compelling read. I'm trying to figure out if I am bored, which is probably the answer to my question. The puzzles are good, but there aren't enough of them, and I really think I'm bored, and that's always a problem for me, as we know. So, okay. That is the December pile of possibilities and the library haul. I know I didn't put up a weekly reading update this week. I finished only one book last week, so it wasn't, going to be, more than a couple of minutes. So I will just save everything for next week, and hopefully I finish more. I will finish by then Shakespeare's Sisters by Rami Tagoff. I am just over halfway through. This has been I'm closer to 60% through. A great... I'm still blown away that this is much more academic read, and there is very little commentary shenanigans going on in this text, so I am pleased. Okay, that is my pile of possibilities for physical books. The part 2 of this will come out this week as well, probably the day after this video does, and I'm really interested. What are you guys reading in December? Do you have something fun planned? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.